and welcome to the LatinX Business Podcast. I'm your host, Randy Gomez, and if you're looking to demystify the world of business through the raw, authentic stories of Latinx entrepreneurs, you've come to the right place. As someone with an MBA and an IRS enrolled agent license, I spent years helping freelancers, partnerships, and S corporations navigate the often tricky waters of the U.S. tax law. Now, I'm bringing that expertise and passion to this community right here. So thank you for tuning in, and you know what? It's time to talk business. Thanks for coming on to the Latinx Business Show.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so let's begin with introducing the listeners to the business that you own. So Ricky, you started your business at the age of 14 and you own Ricky's Party Rentals. How about you give us more information about how that started?
Yeah, definitely. So basically, I've always liked music and DJing since I was a little kid. So, I mean, it actually started back in like 6th grade when my dad bought me like my first pair of speakers, and then 7th grade I got my first mixer, and my tia bought me like a DJ light, and by the end of middle school I had my actual like first DJ system where I was able to start DJing parties and stuff like that. And by my freshman year in high school I was DJing family parties and just little things here and there. And one of my cousins that I would DJ for a lot, they actually had their own tables and chairs because they would always have parties and stuff like that. And I basically, after one of the parties that I DJed for her, I asked her, I'm like, hey, is it okay if I rent out your stuff, and maybe we could split the profits since it's just kind of sitting in your garage when you're not having parties. And, she was up for it. And basically I took her stuff and started renting it out and used all the profit to buy my own inventory. And then eventually I gave her stuff back and I had my own set of tables and chairs, and it basically grew from there to a full inventory with a 5,000 square foot warehouse completely full of thousands of chairs, tables, linens, dinnerware, event sofas, furniture, everything that you could probably think of at the moment for events. We have it.
Yes. Oh my God, Ricky. I think that's amazing. Like, at the age of 4, you just saw an opportunity where you can go in there and you can make money off items that are just sitting there, right? Like we were talking, and I know you were saying, it was going to sit there until the next party. So why not make some money off of it, right? Like it's almost like you're being super efficient with your supplies. I mean, at the end of the day, like, there are so many people that buy so many things, products and stuff. I think here, like in America, we're probably the most hoarders, right? We buy stuff. So like if more people would do this, imagine how many more like 14-year-olds can be making money at such a young age, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So I find that to be extremely inspiring. So question though, in terms of like the Latinx community, how do you identify, because you're fairly young, right? And you do have a big business that you run, but how do you identify in the Latinx community? Or do you consider yourself Latino, Mexican American, or what's your heritage?
So when it comes to that, I was always like a bit confused. And growing up, everyone's always like, oh, like what are you? And everyone would be like, oh yeah, you're Mexican, huh? You're Mexican. Growing up, that's what I always said, just because that's kind of what everyone automatically assumes, and that's just kind of what everyone says. But as I got older and older and like actually understood, like Mexican's not like a race, Mexico is a country, and if you're from that country, you're Mexican, and I was born here, so it's not like I'm from Mexico. My parents were born here, so they're not from Mexico, but my grandparents were from Mexico, and my great grandparents, all my ancestors for the most part are all from Mexico. So I mean, I definitely have Mexican heritage, but to call myself a Mexican American, I feel like I don't own that right to say that just because I'm not from Mexico. And I mean, I would definitely consider myself Latino for sure. I mean, obviously, but to call myself like that term Mexican American, even though, my ancestors are from Mexico, I don't think I have the right to use that term, but I try not to use it anymore. But yeah, for the most part, I just identify as Latino.
Okay. Yeah, that works, and I think that's one of the reasons I also wanted to name my podcast Latinx, right? It is a new trendy word, but to me, it's non-gendered, right? So anyone could be a Latinx or Latino, Latina, and I think part of my show is I want everyone to feel welcome and to come here and just say like, we're all part of this like bigger culture, but within that big culture, there's so many little regional differences, right? And like, so yeah, I'm glad that you do call yourself Latino. And then for the rest of the show, we'll use that for you. Oh, right. So I wanted to know more about your parents. Where are they from in Mexico? So what's your like heritage
So
background?
my mom, she's actually from Orange County, and she kind of lived all around. She lived in La Mirada for a bit, Garden Grove, Anaheim. So she was kind of all over Orange County. And then my
Hmm.
dad too, he was all over LA, and then for the most part, he grew up in Pasadena. So my direct parents, they're from Southern California. They've been here their entire life. My grandma, my mom's side, she actually came to Arizona when she was about 15 from Chihuahua. I'm honestly not too sure where in Chihuahua, but I know that that's where my mom's side is mainly from.
Hmm.
And then, so she's been here since she was 15, and she started in Phoenix, went to LA, and ever since LA, she's been all over the LA area, and then she ended up in Orange County. And then once, they got older, they came out here to the Inland Empire, and they've been in the Inland Empire ever since, and that's why I live out here as well. And then my dad's side,
Mm.
my grandma, my grandpa, they came over, and they're actually from my dad's side. My grandpa, they're from Yucatan, so they're pretty far out there in Mexico.
Yeah, pretty south.
Yeah,
But that's a beautiful state, Yucatan.
yeah.
Yeah.
So there, but they're pretty much everyone's been out here for a while now. Because I know my great grandpa, he came back and forth from Yucatan to Pasadena quite frequently. And I know right before he passed, he ended up going back there because that's where he wanted to be. But yeah, my grandpa as well, he came back and forth. And yeah, my dad's side, they were very back and forth. So they would live over there, they would live over here. So they stayed more, I would say, more close to their roots in
Hmm.
Mexico, because they would go back
Yeah.
and forth a lot more.
That's so funny. I feel like our ancestors traveled so much. Like every time I think about how my mom and my dad decided to get up and leave their hometown for a better life, they decided to move across countries. Right?
Yeah.
And for me, I've just gone from one LA county to the other county, and I'm just like I don't travel that much. Like I'm like an LA boy. I probably will die here, to be honest, because I love it so much. But it's insane to me how so many people just decide like there's gonna be a better life for me in a different place that's not my hometown where I grew up in. So yeah, just hearing you say that, just it amazes me how this is a common story amongst many, many Latinx people. Moving on to the next question, tell me what has been some of the challenges you face as a young Latino entrepreneur.
I'd say challenges. I wouldn't necessarily say it's as a young Latino entrepreneur, but mainly just a young entrepreneur.
Okay.
Because I feel like me being Latino hasn't been like more like, I would say, just harder in general, but just feeling
Hmm.
that me being young, I feel like there's a lot more challenges, because a lot of people don't
Yeah.
want to take you seriously. They look at you like you're just a kid, like, especially when I started at 14, everyone would just like down talk you and just say, oh, this little kid doesn't know what he's doing, and I mean, I got a lot of that, and that's kind of
Right.
one thing that I always kind of experienced, like just building the
Hmm.
company. Everyone was like, oh, well, he's just a kid. And then once, I graduated high school, and, I took that bold choice of not going to college and pursuing the business. And, I would get so much like backlash from like my parents' friends and just cousins and stuff like that. Like, oh, wow, you're really doing that still? Like, that's what you want to do with your life? And, just stuff like
Right.
that, like you're just a kid. You don't know what you want. You don't know what you're supposed to be doing. And, just kind of just doing my own thing no matter what everyone says. And, fast forward the clock, 9 years, and here we are with the, pretty well established small business, and we're growing like at exceptional rates. It's crazy. We're pretty much doubling in size like every year. And even with the
Right.
pandemic going on, like it's crazy. We're still growing. Like we're still constantly growing and growing and growing. So it's pretty awesome at that point. But I mean, there definitely
Yeah.
have been those challenges being young where everyone just kind of like talks down to you, undermines you, doesn't take you seriously, and stuff like that. But as a Latino side, I mean, I really wouldn't say that was really an issue. I mean, I feel like if anything, I mean, I definitely have experienced like some type of mild discrimination and stuff like that, but nothing
Yeah.
that has really like prevented me from like excelling in the business.
Yeah. Okay. So, question to that. How is it that you like decided to tell your parents one day that, hey, I'm not going to college. I'm actually going to pursue this business idea that I've been working at for the last 4 years during my high school years. How did that go?
Um,
Tell me more about that.
I mean, they were a bit concerned. Not too concerned, just because my dad was an entrepreneur as well. You know, he had his own electrical company for a while, and you know, ever since he was growing up, he was always hustling. He had a little perfume business on the side. He was always hustling something, selling T-shirts, whatever he
Yeah.
had to do. You know, he was always an
Right.
entrepreneur at heart. And same thing with my grandpa. You know, my grandpa at one point, you know, he owned a small like organic grocery store out in LA somewhere. I don't remember where, but somewhere out in LA. And you know, so he had the entrepreneur mindset as well. So that's kind of where I got it from. It's from my grandpa.
Right. Yeah.
Um,
It sounds like it's in your veins to be an entrepreneur.
yeah.
Okay.
So my dad, you know, he kind of was a little concerned, but at the same time, you know, he kind of knows what it's like to be an entrepreneur. So he's always kind of like pushing me and just kind of motivating me to do it. He's like, you know, just be careful. Like, think about what you're doing. Think about your choices. You know, make sure you're making right moves. And you know, so
Mm-hmm.
for the most part, he was a bit supportive. My mom, you know, my mom's always been supportive. She's never wanted me to go this route, but you know, she's always been
Right.
supportive with everything I do. You know, if I need something, she's there. If we need extra hands, you know, she's there to assist, you know, but it wasn't always
Oh,
the
nice.
right move that she wanted me to make. But even though it was the
Yeah.
move, you know, she was still there for me. So, I mean, I'm always appreciative of that.
That's awesome. I'm glad to hear that. See, that's something that I had no idea that you had that in your family. Like, no wonder you're an entrepreneur at such a young age, you know? I definitely do think that not too many people take that kind of decision that quickly in their life, right? It's for some people to become an entrepreneur might take a later stage in their life to be like, I'm in the right state of mind, I'm financially stable, and if I don't do this now, then I'll never do it, right? So yeah, I definitely commend you for doing that, and that's why I wanted to know more about that, and I think our listeners would definitely appreciate that. The other question I was just thinking about when you were talking about, you know, people not taking you too seriously as a young person, who did you get that mainly from? Was it from family and friends, or was it from the outside world? Was it from, you know what I mean? Because I'm trying to see, like, do you think it was like the Latinos in your family who would not be too supportive, or was it like the actual business community that wasn't too supportive of you being too young?
I feel like overall everywhere it was from everywhere, honestly. Like mainly from vendors too, like when I would try to buy product or set up accounts, like wholesale accounts, like you know, they would just kind of look
Mm,
at you
right,
weird
right,
and like kind of brush you off, like, you know, not wanting to take you seriously, you know, like when you're trying to start up a business. And, you know, same thing with family. They were just
right.
like, oh, well, I get you're trying to start a business, but you know, like they wouldn't want to pay you right, you know, because they think that it's just like oh side money or whatever, like here just take a donation type of thing, you
Yeah.
know, and like not understanding that you're like trying to build a business, you know, like so,
Yeah, you're like, step back.
yeah,
Like, I have value here. Like, you're gonna pay me.
yeah. So I mean that was like one thing. It was struggling with like friends and family like valuing you to grow, and you know at one point, you know, I just basically had to cut all ties with doing business with family. Like I just wouldn't do it just because like it just got too complicated. You know, everyone wants favors, everyone wants discounts,
Right.
everyone wants free, and if you don't give it to them, you know, then they get offended and stuff like that. And I just try to avoid it, you know, and that's what I had to
Mm.
do. And pretty much, I mean, it worked out. You
Yeah.
know, it saved relationships. I try to keep business and family separate, and that's what I've kind of always learned. And it sucks because I
Mm-hmm.
feel like, you
Mm-hmm.
know, business is a big part of your life. You know, where you work is where you're at, and it would be nice to, you know, do business with family and, you know, build a family company, but for me it didn't work out that way. So I try to keep family and business separate
Yeah.
to just kind of make things more cleaner. Even with like vendors and stuff like that, or even like family friends that have were in the industry, you know, like I would try to reach out for advice and stuff like that. And same thing, you know, they talk down to you a little bit, and then when they see like you're motivated and trying to do stuff, now they're like, oh, well, it's a conflict of interest. I can't help you. I can't talk to you. I can't tell you this and that. And it's like, and this is all while I'm in like a freshman in high school, and it's like for you to be a
Right.
grown adult and being like insecure of, a high schooler, a freshman high schooler, like stealing your business is just kind of crazy, And so, I
Mm,
mean, there was the family
so sad.
aspect, there was the reaching out for mentors aspect, and then just vendors too. I mean, I would go into like constantly, I would be in school, like researching vendors and suppliers and resources and stuff like that, constantly, constantly, constantly. And, half of the time they wouldn't even want to like let you open up an account, or for whatever reason, there were just all these crazy things. And, it was hard to find certain items wholesale. So at one point, I was paying more and having to get burned on certain things because I didn't know, like I would have to buy it from like third party sellers, and basically sourcing all my vendors and suppliers. It was definitely a long journey that way too. So it just on all
Mm,
aspects, it kind of sucked being
yeah.
young. But I mean, we're good now. So I mean, I think it kind of made me a little bit more
Yeah.
stronger, learning how to deal with all the freaking, like, the BS and stuff that people throw your way. So I mean, at this point, I'm just kind of like whatever about it. I mean, whatever. It doesn't kill you, it makes you stronger, right?
Definitely, definitely. I feel like, what you just described to me is ER education, right? In this business. So, so many people do go to college when they're 18, 19 years old, right? But hey, one thing they teach you in college is do your research, 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 research. And that's what you just described to me is that no matter whether you found an obstacle or not, you still kept going at your business for one, and then you kept researching other suppliers, right? So yeah, I mean, that's amazing. I feel that, like, because now your business is extremely successful, right? So aren't you thankful that you did continue doing that over and over again, even though you had people in the industry kind of like, yeah, be intimidated by you. And it's funny that you say that, because I feel like, myself as an accountant, I mean, I'm 34 now, right? But when I first started 10 years ago, I was 24 in taxes. So I've had several, if not at least every single employer since then, tell me at some point, when you start your own business or when you have your own client, right? And at the time, I didn't really think too much of it. But now that in retrospect, I think about it, and I think like they knew that I was going to take this path. They knew that I was capable of doing that. And they knew that one day, like, I would not be working for them, right? So sometimes I feel like it's not people, it could be one that people are be like, oh, this kid's going to take my business because he's younger and more motivated. But two, they just might think that, well, I had to do this on my own, so he has to go do it, figure it out on his own too. I mean, I think that's just my experience, right? I think that part of it is like, one, people are intimidated by you, by your success. And then two, people are like, well, it costs me so much to figure this out, which is why, that's one of my main purposes of this podcast is like, you know what, like if we share information amongst other entrepreneurs, like imagine the next generation of Latino entrepreneurs that are going to come up, with us and after us, right? I'm just like, I see so many tons and tons of Latinos who start businesses, right? Because of the nature of my work now that I do taxes. But yeah, I just feel like it's very interesting. It's interesting how that works out, right? But I feel like, you're not alone for sure. Definitely. I feel like, there's experiences and other young entrepreneurs out there. So you've had similar experiences that I've had, but in a different form, right? Or in
Hmm.
a different shape, right? So I'm like, don't feel like, you know, that all that time that you spent there is not valuable, right? Because at the end of the day, like it's been 10 years for me since I first started doing tax. And no matter what I've done, every single job has prepared me for my next job or for my next big tax return, right? So I feel like every place I've been at has taught me something. So now in retrospect, I can see that. But at the time, you're like 20 something and you're like, what the hell am I doing with my life? you know?
Yeah.
So you're like, what am I supposed to be doing with my life? That's maybe one of the bigger questions in your 20s. But yeah. Let's move on, I guess, to the next question. And I actually wanted to talk to you a little bit about the pandemic, right? So how has your business been doing during the pandemic?
So at first it hit us really, really bad, very, very bad. I mean, we were good all through. I mean, we just moved into our new warehouse in January. So
Uh-huh.
January, we were gearing up for a crazy year. So January we moved into our new shop. We were putting up racks and getting organized, and just really gearing up to be super busy. And then February, and usually January and February are really, because after December with all the holiday parties, everything kind of takes a dip because everyone's,
Hmm.
they're a little broke, they're kind of
Broke.
tired,
Yeah.
it's just, it's always too cold. So it always takes a dip in January, February. And then March, it kind of takes a little bit of it's still pretty slow, but it starts picking up a little bit. And actually,
Right.
this March, we were ridiculously busy, and it was crazy.
I
We were
bet.
as busy as we are in our busiest months for March, and it was a surprise. We're like, we're never this busy
Yeah.
in March.
Actually.
So come March, we were killing it with parties and events. Business was booming, and there you go. Towards the end of March, COVID hit, and basically every single customer was calling and canceling their events. Everyone wanted a refund. Like it was crazy. It was crazy. We lost basically all our business in the matter of
Mm,
like 3 or 4 days. Everyone canceled. Everything was
my
gone.
God.
It
That
was, it
must
was
have been devastating. How
yeah.
did you handle that that week in your life?
It was very overwhelming. That was probably one of the hardest. Well, I mean, this honestly has probably been one of the hardest years, just mentally, emotionally, physically at this point too, with just emotions and work and just everything. It's been a big, big toll this year on just me in general. And at that point in March, I had to let go of my entire team. Like, I could not afford to keep anyone. I mean, we were
Wow.
issuing some refunds. I mean, I wasn't able to issue everyone a refund, especially because we made a lot of investments preparing for a lot of these big events. We bought equipment, we were getting preparations. We were A lot of the
Right.
money that the customers were using as deposits were already invested in their orders because we were preparing, for a busy, busy season. And just
Right.
like a flip of a switch, we literally lost all our business. Everyone was canceling, like everyone was canceling. And
Mm,
we lost everything. I mean, I didn't know when we were going to come back. I had to let my guys go. All the bills were racking up, and it was very scary. I did not know that we were going to have a business to go back to. And for about two
wow.
months, we had nothing. 2 months with
Yeah.
absolutely nothing. Like, the warehouse was perfect. Before I had to let the guys go, we made sure everything was organized, everything was perfect to the T. And after that, we closed. Everyone had to go, and there was nothing to do. We,
Yikes.
we were completely shut down for at least 2 months, and then like April was done. May was like, I probably had like two events, and they weren't even events. They were just like people renting like a jumper just for their kids because they've been bored in the house for so long. And
Right.
then
I've
by
seen those
June,
around.
and then by June, we picked up and we started doing like little tiny events. And then July, was actually pretty decently busy, but the whole business model shifted because we were doing large events for 200, 300 people, just big events, and all that's pretty much gone at this point. But we noticed
Wow.
a difference in our clients where they were booking more expensive items but for smaller quantities. So instead of like customers getting like our cheapest chair
Mm,
for 100 people, they were getting
yeah.
some of our more expensive stuffs for like 20 people or 30 people. And they were getting more
Interesting.
tables because they wanted less people per table. And the tents were bigger now because they wanted to space out the tables and stuff like that. So we saw a
Uh,
big shift in how we were conducting business because all our inventory just kind of switched around. So a lot of our cheaper
yeah.
stuff has been just sitting, and I feel like everyone just kind of had a bigger budget since the guest count went down. So that's mainly what we've been seeing. And right now we've honestly never been busier. It's crazy. We've actually been breaking sales records right now. This
And
past October was the busiest month on record, and it's actually been twice as busy as any busy month that we've ever had in the history of our company. So
wow.
we've doubled in sales in a month versus what we were doing
And
before. And
yeah,
that's
and during a
during a pandemic.
pandemic.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
during a pandemic, which is crazy. But mind you, I mean, before this even happened, last year I was boosting and really spending a lot of money on marketing, and we were doing a lot of like Google marketing, Instagram marketing, Facebook marketing, just all over. So the marketing, I mean, at the beginning of the year or when the beginning of the pandemic hit, it felt like such a waste. I'm like, I spent so much money on marketing and so much time and
Right.
effort to have a killer year, and it's all for nothing because all these customers canceled their events. There's no bookings coming in. And in
Hmm.
reality, like, it hurt at first, but that marketing budget that I spent so heavy on the end of last year is what's
Hmm.
really helping us kill it right now because we're on top of everything. Like, we see all these party rental companies and they're still struggling. They're not that busy. Some of them are even closing their doors. And for us to be at this point right now where we cannot keep up with demand, like we're booking like 2 to 3 months in advance right now. And like we're slammed with work. My guys are working like 50, 60 hour weeks most weeks right now because we're just ridiculously bombarded with work. And it's a blessing, it really is, because just to think back,
Yeah.
earlier this year, I mean, I thought I was losing my company for good, and now it's like we have more work than we can handle, which is kind of crazy. I mean, it sounds like a blessing, which it is, but at the same time, it's been very overwhelming because hard to keep up with the demand and hard to see like where this is going. Like, is this going to be just a quick influx because everyone's been so antsy with being trapped at
Right.
home, and now that all the venues are closed, everyone's moving their weddings to their backyards, which is what we've seen a lot of work from. Is everyone's moving? They're
Mm,
having the micro weddings, where they're only
you're
having a
right.
wedding for like 30 people, 20 people, or the immediate household, but they're still going the whole 9 yards, where they're renting everything: the glasses, the china, the dinnerware, the fancy tables and chairs, the tents. So
Hmm.
basically, they're renting everything that they would for a full size wedding, but with like a quarter of the guest counts now. So
Right.
that's actually helped our business in a really positive way because the average order ticket is a lot higher than it would have been
Per
without the
guest. Yeah.
pandemic.
Versus before the pandemic. Yeah. So let me ask you a couple of questions because I just thought of a couple of things. So, well, one, what that shows me is that what they taught me in business school is actually accurate. Being prepared and being ready to meet demand when it's there will get you success. So, I applaud you for being able to fill these orders at a time of a pandemic where, you could have very much just shut doors in June or May, right? But so tell me a little bit about how your vendors treated you. You spent this money, you were investing on more products. So how did you meet that vendor? Were you able to return your products? Were you not? Did you hold on to it? What did you
Um,
do at that point with the cancellations of all the venues and the weddings and the big events, the two,
so
300 person events?
basically, a lot of stuff when you're dealing with these vendors is kind of like all sales are final. So once you buy it, you buy it. And then, like, especially like if you're ordering like linens and stuff like that for events,
Mm-hmm.
we're custom making them. So it's not like we can just return them to the sewers because we're buying the fabric, we're sending it to the sewers, and the sewers are making it for what we need custom. So it's not something that you can
Right.
just like return. And same thing like when we're buying like large equipment, we can't just return, a $10,000 tent. Like, it just doesn't work that way. So, we
Yikes.
were left with a lot of not just expensive equipment, but just a lot of unique items that were specific for clients' events, that we're preparing for. And it was sitting, and it sucked at that point. We were just kind of screwed. And then the issue that I'm having now is now that business is picking back up,
Mhm.
a lot of our vendors, they've closed their doors, and now that events
Right.
are coming back, like, it's been really hard for us to source items. So not only keep up with demand, but sourcing items has been a real struggle because like some of my closest vendors, they're gone. And
Wow. And do you think they'll ever come back or they're just gone for good?
well, I know some of them have consolidated, so they got bought out by
Mm,
other vendors. Some of them, it does sound like they are gone for good. Other ones,
yikes.
they were trying to get bought out. They weren't able to find buyers, and now they're just closed until someone wants to revive the company down the road. But from what it sounds like,
Hmm.
is a lot of those companies that are in that position, they're not going to come back for a while because they want to make sure that the whole pandemic is gone, which I honestly don't think this is going to go away for another 2, 3 years at the least, at very, very least. And we're not talking about
Mhm.
small,
Yeah.
like backyard stuff like that. Like, I feel like that's going to be around for a while, which is why my company's surviving. But we're more talking about like the real events, like festivals and concerts and, fairs and just large company gatherings and just like the large scale
Hmm.
events, and that's what we were working
Right.
towards. I mean, we used to do like events around like 300 people on the regular, and that sounds big,
Hmm.
but that's not what we were going for. We were going for the 1,000 people events, the 2,000 people events. Like we were
Right.
building our company to get to those large scale events, and that's gone,
Right.
and a lot of those big vendors and companies, that's who their clientele was, like, what is it, predominantly, and
Hmm.
that's gone. So for those companies to come back right now, just there's no business for them to come back. And I think that's one
Right.
of our advantages right now, since we were just small enough to fall under the radar, but big enough to know to catch all that demand once it started coming back. So I think our size where we're at is what has been our biggest advantage during all this craziness.
Yeah, yeah, that's amazing. Well, I'm glad to hear that because I definitely, when we had conversations back in early spring, mid-spring, things did seem dire for a moment. So, to say the least, this year has been really, really messed up for so many people, and it's just been a ride of a roller coaster. So, I commend you for being where you're at the moment. I think that's amazing. So yeah, let's talk about like a financial lesson. What would you want like the listeners to take away? Like, it's a financial lesson from the pandemic or one from the past, something that you would want to share with the listeners.
I mean, one financial lesson I would probably give, and like that's one of my rules that I usually live by, and I constantly break it, and I try to live by it. Is
Mm-hmm.
when you're like, for my business, you're constantly investing in inventory and products, because you need products, because I mean that's what we do. We rent out inventory. So you need to have this
Right.
large inventory. And I would say the biggest thing is like maximizing the inventory that you have, because especially in this business, it's a very trendy business. So whatever you see like celebrities doing at their parties or influencers and stuff like that, that's what clients want. So there's constantly always these new
Mm.
trends, and there's always new products, and there's always the next new thing that people want for their parties. And it gets a little chaotic, and sometimes we have made bad investments where there's an item that's really trendy right now, and you're like, okay, buy it, everyone wants it, and then you get it, and it's trendy for a month or two, and then it's done, like it sits and it never goes out again, and you don't really get to make money on that product. So my thing is just like, be careful on what trends you're kind of hopping on, because not all of them are always going to be very profitable, good trends to hop
Right. Or everlasting trends,
Yeah.
right? We're gonna be amazing if every time lasted and then your products you could use over and over and over again. So
Yeah. So
yeah,
it's
complex to
being
have
careful on
investment
what
just
items you're kind of investing in, especially in this business. You can get very carried away easy, because I mean it never ends. Like it seriously never ends. Like you'll never have enough tables and chairs and dinnerware and glasses or anything. Like it's so trendy, and the type of business that I'm in, it's just, you're never gonna have everything. Like that's just kind of how it is.
right.
Another thing too, I would say, don't get into a lot of debt. And it's another thing that I always live by, and I broke that rule too. But don't get into a lot of debt at one point. Like, try to build a company that's very self-sustaining. This January, I was going in very, very hungry, and I'm like, let's go for it, let's go all in. And in the beginning of this year, I mean, we made a lot of investments. I mean, moving into our new warehouse was a big investment, because we doubled our size in what we had before. So that was a
Yeah.
big jump. On top of getting new vehicles, because we were gearing up for a big busy year, and once the shutdown hit, we had all these bills coming in with all the stuff that we were getting ready to gear up for. And I mean, at that point, I can't say like we're all at fault, because no one was expecting a pandemic to happen. No one was expecting a shutdown, so we were gearing up and getting ready for the busiest year like ever, you know? And it
Hmm.
sucked because after that, you know, everything shut down and we were stuck with all these bills from us gearing up for the busiest year ever, you know? So at that point, I mean, I would say don't get too carried away, be a little bit modest and a little conservative. But at the same time, I mean, if I didn't make those investments right now, we would be struggling, you know, because we wouldn't be able to do the demand we're doing right now, or the volume, I should say.
Right, you wouldn't be able to meet those
Yeah,
invoices.
so I
Uh,
mean, it's been a very complicated and crazy year, you know. So I mean, at one point,
wow.
you know, it's like, why did I do that? Why did I buy
Yeah,
that? Why did I get that? And right
I
now,
bet.
I'm kind of back at that point where I'm like, thank God I got that. Thank God I got these trucks. Thank
Thank
God,
God.
you know, I did this
Yeah.
because we wouldn't be able to keep up with the demand at that point, you know. So yeah, it's
No,
just been a
yeah,
crazy year, a
definitely.
very crazy year.
All right. Well, let's talk a little bit about what you would want the listeners to take away from this episode, right? Or final takeaways. And like, what do you like? Do you listen to a podcast? Actually, you know what? Delete that. I'm sorry. All right. So, we are reaching the end of the show. So why don't we talk about some takeaways for our community? Is there a podcast, a book, or quotes that you live by that you would like to share with the
I
listeners?
listen to a lot of podcasts. I listen to a lot of like ebooks. I mean, I'm pretty sure a lot of them are basic. One book that I've really kind of lived by, or not really lived by, but ran my company on, is the E Myth. And I'm not too sure if you ever heard of that one. But it's
No.
basically a book about small businesses, like learning how to run your business properly and how to set your business up to scale. And especially being in this industry, I mean, you see party rental companies everywhere. I'm pretty sure on the weekends you see them mom and pop in their little pickup truck dropping off bounce houses and tables and chairs. I mean, I'm pretty sure you see the trucks everywhere, because for sure I do. Maybe that's because I'm in the industry where I noticed that, but I mean, there's
Hmm.
mom and pop party rental companies everywhere, everywhere, everywhere. Like there's thousands upon thousands of them.
Well, and wait, say that one more time. So, what's the name of the book and who wrote
The
the book?
book is called The E-Myth, and it is by Michael or Gerber, I believe.
All right, that's awesome. I will definitely have that in the podcast notes for our audience if they want to pick that up. So, why do you like that book, E-Myth?
Basically, that book is all about systemizing your business. And one thing from a lot of the conventions that I go to and trade shows and conferences is taking your business from a small mom and pop to a scalable company is very important, on what you're doing with your systems and your processes and how you handle things, and like knowing the roles in the company and who's in charge of those roles and who's supposed to do what. And the book just really defines everything and kind of like just explains, like it feels common sense after you're listening to it, but like when you're in the process of doing a business, like you don't think about all that. And it basically
Hmm.
just kind of tells you, like, you know, you need to put all those processes and systems in place. Like McDonald's is ran by high schoolers for the most part, and they're a multi-billion-dollar corporation. Why are they able to be a billion-dollar
Right,
corporation ran off high schoolers and teenagers and, you know, minimum wage workers that aren't skilled? And it basically tells you, I mean, if they're doing that, I mean, you can apply those same practices into your business, where, you know, you need to simplify every process in the company and make it so that, you know, anyone can do it. Anyone can come into your business and run it, and you
right.
don't need to have someone that's super skilled and super well educated, I should say, and doing the minimalist roles,
Right.
you know, and that way that
Hmm.
kind of
Yeah.
opens up space for you to do other things. And overall, like it's a great book. Anyone that's starting a business, I feel like, should read that book. It's very helpful.
All right. No, that sounds good. And it's in e format as well, right? So you can listen to the
Yes.
book, like you said. So again, for listeners, that's E Myth by Michael Gerber. And I'll have that in the podcast notes as
Cool.
well. But yeah, no, thank you so much for coming on board. I appreciate all the insight you've given us. I think you've given us so much. And I love hearing from you. And I feel like I just learned 1,000 new things from you. So thank you again for coming on
Absolutely.
board.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for joining me on this episode. Please take a moment to subscribe, rate, and share this podcast with your network. Your support helps our LatinX business community grow stronger with every listen, and I truly invite you to connect with us. Send us your questions, your comments, or even your own business stories to randy@rgtaxes.com. I would love to hear from you. Until next time, keep learning, keep building your business, and keep growing your business mindset.